Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are making another teacher appreciation back to school gift for those awesome teachers in your life, or co-workers if you are a teacher. I am kind of making a project that I have seen from Sheri. She is the Posh Paper Lady here on YouTube, and I am kind of redoing it a little bit to make it my own and use what I have in my stash. So let's go ahead and get into it. So this is going to be a box with an acetate window that will hold 3x3 note cards and their envelopes. She did note cards for both compartments, so this is a divided box, but I'm going to do note cards and then sticky notes. Teachers always need sticky notes, and these little cards would be good for them to put on a student's desk, you know, to encourage them or tell them, hey, I'm happy you're here. Drop to, you know, a fellow coworker on their desk if they're having kind of a crummy day, you know, any kind of pick-me-up thing. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our note cards. So these are 3x3 note cards, and I did round the corners on my note cards. I thought that looked a little bit nicer. So these are super simple. I am using single-sided paper for these. So what I did is I found some pattern paper that matched the box that I'm going to make, and I took them to my trimmer and I cut it to 6x3. So 6 inches long by 3 inches wide, and we are very simply going to fold this in half and make us a 3x3 note card. Super simple. I did decide to round my corners, so I'm going to take my 1/4 inch segment rounder on my corner chomper, and I'm just going to corner round these while it is folded. This is super strong, so it goes through both layers of that cardstock, no problem. I'm going to put 8 cards and 8 envelopes into my box today, but you can put as many or as little as you want, and you can embellish these if you so desire, but I'm keeping them very simple and letting the paper do the talking. And then there's obviously plenty of room to write on the inside. So like I said, I have 8 little cards here today. So that is all. So if you want to make this project and put 8 in there, just cut 8 pieces of cardstock to 6x3, fold them in half on the 6-inch side, and then if you choose, go ahead and round your corners. And you can embellish those however you want or keep them simple like I did. So the cards are done. Let's talk about the envelopes. So she made her own envelopes without using any kind of punch board or anything. I wanted to use my punch board. So I'm going to be using the mini envelope punch board today, but I'm going to tell you that my hand was already starting to get sore just after making 7 of these. Your regular size 1, 2, 3 envelope punch board will make a 3x3 envelope. I would suggest, especially if you're going to be making multiples of these, to use your regular size one and not your mini if you have it. Just because it's not hard to use, but this button gets kind of, it'll wear a hole in you. So use your regular size punch board if you have it. But let's go ahead and make an envelope on screen while you're here. So to make a 3x3 card, let me see if I can kind of get it in here. To make a card size that is 3x3, you need a paper size that is 4 7/8 square. So 4 7/8 by 4 7/8. So I went ahead and cut that off screen. This is just my hammer mill cardstock that I use for everything. So I cut that to 4 7/8 by 4 7/8. Then to start your card, you are going to do your first score and punch at 2.5. So this does come with a little stylus, but I'm going to use my regular stylus, my little Dollar Tree stylus, no less. So to make a 3x3 card, it said we needed to have 4 7/8 by 4 7/8 square paper size. And our first punch and score was at 2.5. What's great about the We Are Memory Keepers punch boards is that they actually label all of the measurements for you. So you don't have to sit there and count and figure it out. It's already labeled for you on the board itself. So I'm going to line up the left edge of my paper up at the top along this bar here and line it up at the 2.5. I'm going to punch it, and then I found that it was much easier to score from this edge over here and go up, especially if you're not using the stylus that comes with it. So then you're going to rotate your paper 1/4 of a turn, and you're going to line up again with the bar of this, with your paper up against this ledge here, and then line up your score line with this little notch that sticks out, okay? Then you're going to punch it and score it again. You only have to worry about that 2.5 inch punch the very first time. You never have to worry about it again. However, I have found that if you're doing things right, your 3rd punch should line up again at your start spot. I don't know if that's true every time, but I have discovered that every time I've made one, that has held true for me. So punch and score, and then you are left with something that looks like this. Your score marks will probably go all the way to the edge if you're using the one that actually comes with the board. So then you're left with this, and that's how it's supposed to look. Then I like to go ahead and round the corners. This does have a corner rounder right here, but again, it is so teeny tiny, I find it kind of hard to use. If you're using your larger punch board, that's not a big deal. The button is much larger, so it's not as uncomfortable on your hand, but I'm just going to use my corner rounder here. Again, using the smaller round, I'm just going to round all of the corners. You don't necessarily have to round all of the corners. You can just round 2 of them. You know, that'll be your bottom and your top flap. Or you don't have to round any of them if you don't like that look. That's totally up to you. So we are done with the punch board now. So now I'm going to just fold and burnish all of the little score marks we made. And then I will show you how we can put together these little mini envelopes. So very quickly, just fold and burnish. Now you're going to discover that this box is going to come together, or this envelope is going to come together and look a lot neater one way versus the other. So if I flip it and try to fold it, like, that's just not a very neat finish. So I've discovered that this is not exactly square when it's done. It's more of a rectangle by 1/4 of an inch. So it's like 3 by 3 1/4. And I have found with my longer sides going vertical and then folding it in, it looks a lot neater as opposed to that. Okay, so folding in my 2 sides, and I like to use liquid glue for this part especially, just because this is a little bit heavier weight of a cardstock. It's not like crazy heavyweight, but it is a little heavier weight and it has a tendency to want to pop open. And I have just found that my liquid glue does a much better job of adhering this down. So you're just gonna put some adhesive there. Whoops. And I like to hold a magnet there, or put a magnet there just because I'm lazy, and that holds it in place. And then to give them a place to actually close this, they can obviously tuck it, but some people like to actually close their envelopes. I like to put some 1/8 inch, for an envelope this size, I do the 1/8 inch like double-sided tape here, and I just put 2 strips and I press it down, and then hopefully they will see that and realize, oh, I can just, you know, peel off the backer, and then I've got a way to actually seal this. They don't have to have glue or anything. I did have someone, I can't remember who, say that they were licking it forever because they thought it was like a lickable sealer. I would have paid money to watch them lick that, trying to get it to close. Oh, I'm so mean. Okay, so this should be good now. So this is your little envelope all made, and it will easily house your 3 by 3 note cards. See? Perfect. Okay, so cards and envelopes for this project are done. So moving on to the actual meat and potatoes of this project, which is the box itself. So I'm going to scoot some things out of the way just because I don't need them. So for the box itself, you are going to need a piece of cardstock for the box that is 8.5 by 11.5. If you are using a paper that has a direction, which I am not, I mean, I guess you could say this has a direction, but in my eyes it doesn't. I guess you could say its direction is this way. No, because that means, I guess its direction is this way. Anyway, if you're using a paper that has a direction, you want to make sure that you cut this in portrait mode because the box is going to flip up like this. Okay, so just be mindful of that if your paper does indeed have a direction. So to score this box, on the short side, so the 8.5 inch side, you're going to score at 1 inch on both ends. So this box is going to be 1 inch deep. Okay, so that's a really good depth. So 8.5 inch side, you score at 1, rotate your paper, score it at 1 again. Now, on your long side, you got a few more score marks than your first side. On the long side, so the 11.5 inch side, you're going to score at 1 and at 2. You're going to score at 5 1/4, at 6 1/4, at 9.5, and at 10.5. So one more time. On the long side, so the 11.5 inch side, you're scoring at 1, 2, 5 1/4, 6 1/4, 9.5, and 10.5. And that is all of your scoring for that done. So this is going to make your box itself. Set this aside while we have our scoreboard out. I want to work on the divider. I chose to make my divider the same as the outside of the box, but you can obviously use whatever you want for this part. This is going to make our divider, and it needs to measure 7 7/8 inches by 3. So 7 7/8 by 3. And on the 7 7/8 inch side, you are going to score at 3 1/8, 3 7/8, and 4 5/8. Okay, that's going to be the divider. We will deal with that once we actually have our box made. So now we are done with our scoreboard. Scoot that out of the way. Let's go ahead and work on the box itself. So I'm going to, actually I don't need to worry about that. So let's go ahead and do some more folding and burnishing. Just creasing and sharpening up our fold marks. And as I fold this over, I'm going to try to make sure that my ends are even. This becomes more of a bigger deal on the other score marks, but I'm just trying to make sure that my creases are even. And I'm going to fold this up. Just try to crease and sharpen those a little bit. Okay. On Miss Sheri's project, she used some double-sided pattern paper. I don't really have any double-sided paper in my stash. That was actually a print file that she has in her shop, and it was a really beautiful blue, like floral and like quilted pattern. It was really pretty. I just don't have that in my stash, and I wanted to use what I do have in my stash. This paper comes from Hobby Lobby. That's just where I have a tendency to find all of my pattern paper. Okay, so once all of your folding and burnishing is done, this is what you should have, okay? So it's already wanting to kind of curl up into that box shape. So the first thing we're gonna do is these outside corners, we are going to remove those. You don't need them. And I am going to, so if you see, we've got a score mark right here. I'm going to kind of angle in on this long rectangle here, and then I'm going to cut straight across on this one, just to try to remove this score mark here. So we angled in on this one, we cut straight across here. We're going to repeat that on this side, so we're going to slightly angle in here, and we're going to cut across straight here. Okay, we're going to repeat that on the opposite side. So as of right now, this box is symmetrical. We are going to do things in a little bit that will give you a definitive top and bottom to your box. So that is all 4 of our corners removed. We do not need those. And that is also our little tabs here cut, angled, or miter cut in. Next thing I'm going to do, these are going to become glue tabs. So I am going to cut straight on this long rectangle here on either side. And then I'm going to kind of miter into this little rectangle, this little square right here. Anytime you have something when you're doing a 3D project that folds into itself, You always want to kind of miter or reduce some of the bulk that's going to be there. That just gives you a much more professional finish and makes it look a little bit nicer. And lets it come together with fewer headaches. So that's all we did, was we just removed these little slivers, essentially just removing our score mark, okay? So this is what we have so far, okay? Super simple. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back to with your short side facing you, you're gonna cut straight up this score mark, stopping at your next horizontal, okay? We're gonna remove and loosen and free this tab here. And then I'm just gonna slightly miter there and slightly miter or wedge there, okay? So we're left with this. We're gonna do that on this side also. So I'm trying to just kind of remove this score mark and keep it straight. I'm gonna miter and miter to remove those, okay? So that is what you are left with. We're going to repeat that on the opposite side also. Going straight up, stopping at your horizontal score mark, and then mitering in on each end. Same thing here. Mitering, mitering, just to remove those edges there. So this is what you're left with. If you want to pause the video there or take a screenshot, if you're like me, you just doodle it out. And pray you can remember what it is you doodled and read your own instructions. All right, so this is what you're left with, okay? We've got tabs here, and then tabs here, okay? So as of right now, your box is symmetrical. Okay, so I found another die for my stash. I don't know who makes this one, but any shape you have, any style design you have will work just fine. This one measures about 3 5/8 by 2 3/8, and I just think that that is going to be a little bit bigger, not so that the edges of the boxes become flimsy, but it's going to give you just a bigger view of what is actually inside this box. So I think I'm going to stick with this. Let me get that centered, and then I'm going to use some tape to hold that in place while I run this through. So like I said, this will fit as long as I fold over the edges. So, and this is narrow enough here, the die I'm using is narrow enough that it's not going to leave impressions on my sides here. So that is good. And I do not even have to roll this all the way through. I just need to roll this top part through. So I'm going to run this through my die cut machine and then I'll be right back. So I ran this through my die cut machine. It did leave some impressions just from the pressure of the cardstock on the cardstock, but that's not a big enough deal for me to be upset about it. So I'm just going to very gently peel this off and then peel that off. I can use that tape for something else. Okay, now you've got a window in your box. So turn side. Okay, so this is a little bit better. All right, so I'm just going to trim off a piece of this acetate, giving myself as much of a border around there as I can, just so that I can adhere that well and not have to worry about it, you know, popping off. So let me just get a measurement here. I would say 5 inches is probably good. So I am going to use some score tape. I have some 1/8 inch score tape here, and I am just going to put this toward the edge as much as possible. Now you will be able to see this adhesive when they open the box. There is your acetate window. All right, so now we are ready to put the box together. So I think I've mentioned before in previous videos, anytime I make something that is 3D, I like to use liquid glue. I feel like that is A, more economical, B, I feel like it sticks better. It has more durability. So this is the front of our box because we put our fancy window here. So this is the bottom of our box. So I'm going to apply glue to these tabs and these tabs, okay? So this is our front, our top of our box. We're gonna not touch anything with that right now. So I'm gonna grab my liquid glue and just apply some glue here, and I'm gonna try to keep it as close to the edge of the box as possible, just because I really want this to look nice and professional. Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm getting really close to you. I'm bound and determined to make y'all dizzy in this video. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring this loose edge to this tight edge, or our score mark. Okay, and when I do that, I'm just using my thumb and my index finger to press, and I am trying to slide that around so that I don't have anything hanging over, but I don't have a huge gap, and trying to make sure that this loose edge is kind of at the same level as our score mark here, okay? I'm going to do the same thing over here, just bringing this loose edge to this tight edge, making the edges of our box. Using my thumb and index finger to hold that in place. Repeating that on this side. We're just going to go around the box and repeat that on every side. Okay, last side. Now what you can do is you can take your bone folder and get in there. You're not going to really be able to see what I'm doing here. Let me fold this out of the way a little bit. I'm just getting my bone folder in there and just burnishing, using the leverage of my desk and my bone folder to really kind of get in there. Make sure that those are adhered. Okay. This side also. The last thing to do to form the bottom of our box is we are going to give this kind of a more finished edge on the front here. And we are going to just apply glue to this panel right here. Okay, fold that over, flip it up, use your bone folder to go inside the box and really smash it down and make sure you've got good adherence. Okay, so that is the bottom of your box, all done. So now what I like to do for the top of my box, I'm going to go ahead and apply glue to these flaps here, and then I'm going to actually fold this box down and essentially dry fit this box to an extent so that I can ensure that I've got a good fit. So I'll show you what I mean. So again, just trying to get glue as close to that one edge as possible. Same thing over here. Taking this tight edge to this loose edge, making sure that our score mark and the end of our paper line up and we don't have any overhang here. If you look really closely, you can see like a little crease from when we ran this through a die cut machine. If that bothers you, just either don't do the window or use larger plates. I do have larger plates. I don't know why I didn't use those. Just dumb, I guess. And then I'm going to, once again, before that glue really sets, I'm just going to make sure that this will actually come together and go in. And it does. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that back up. I'm going to apply glue to this panel here. Again, to give us that nice rounded edge. Fold that over, use your desk to give you some leverage, and then go in with your bone folder to really adhere that down. So as you'll see, I'll show you in a second, this is why we mitered those flaps there, so that we wouldn't have any resistance when we folded these in. So like I said, anytime you have something that's folding into the box, into your 3D project, always miter that, and you'll find that you have a much better fit. And then you can fold that together, and that is your box made. So one of the things that Miss Sheri did not do in her video that I am going to do, I don't like how this flaps open. I think it looks kind of janky. Janky, for lack of better words. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my box back up, and I am also going to, that's another thing that she didn't do that I'm going to do to kind of make it my own, and to get it to where it's a piece that I like. So I'm just going to miter cut this just a little bit, just to kind of reduce that flappy look. If that does not bother you, Do not worry about this part, but it bothers me, so I'm going to do it. And that just kind of, I mean, it's still going to bow some, but it's not as bad. It's not as noticeable, I guess you could say. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little finger notch here. So I'm going to get a small, this is a 1/2 inch circle punch from EK Success. I'm pretty positive I got this at Hobby Lobby. I'm going to try to center this side to side as much as possible. And I'm not going to go in, I might go in just shy maybe of halfway, and then I'm going to punch that. And that's just going to give you a teeny tiny finger notch. Just make it a little bit easier for the recipient to grab a hold of it and open it. So believe it or not, y'all, we are almost done with this. So I'm going to open this back up. Now it's time to work on our divider. So you have 3 score marks here. These are pretty much symmetrical side to side. But what I'm going to do is that middle score line, I'm going to fold it back on itself. And then the other 2, and I'm going to make sure that that's kind of straight. They are almost symmetrical. Not quite, but almost. Or even on each side. I'm going to make sure that that's straight, and then I'm going to crease that, and then these other ones are going to go the opposite direction. Remember, this was our piece that measured 3 by 7 7/8. And again, I'm just going to try to even those up, and then I will burnish them, and then you're left with this kind of M shape, or W, depending on how you want to look at it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply glue into this little valley here. This is our divider. I'm going to use my fingers just to kind of pinch that together and rub it. Try to get that to adhere somewhat well. Before I glue it in, I just want to dry fit it and make sure it's actually going to fit. And it does. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out and I'm going to apply glue to the back of this. This is going to make it more sturdy, and I can center it in there and make it look, I guess for lack of better words, more intentional. Trying to get glue around the edges. Okay. I'm going to pick up my box, get kind of above it so I can see, and just try to center that in there, top to bottom, side to side, all that good stuff, as much as possible. Then I'm going to take my bone folder and kind of press that around. I will list Miss Sheri's YouTube channel below. She has a lot of wonderful projects that I have used over, countless videos that I have used over the past several years to make projects for family and craft fairs. So that is the box done. So it'll close, boom, you can see inside, looks very pretty. Her window was a lot smaller than mine, and she did not have the finger notch, and she didn't wedge right here. But like I said, if that doesn't bother you, don't even worry about it. And her paper was double-sided. If you wanted to hide this acetate, remember to just cut a piece of cardstock that is 1/4 inch smaller than the lid, both directions. And then when you die cut out your window, die cut this panel at the same time so that you know that for sure it is centered and you won't have to deal with like trimming later. And that will cover up the adhesive because you can see that. It's not super obnoxious and distracting, but it is visible. Okay, so let's fill it. Let's do the fun part. Let's fill it. So that is the completed project for today. Again, I will list Miss Sheri's YouTube channel below. She is wonderful, and I just adapted some things to what I had in my stash and things that I wanted to put in there. You could obviously put soaps in here. If you had custom soaps that you made, you could put those in there. You could put chocolates or sticky notes or other stationery items in here. Obviously, cards and envelopes. That is the project for today. I appreciate you spending time with me. I hope you felt inspired to send some teachers some love. And until then, we will see you next time. Bye.